Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome, beautiful people. I am so glad that you have joined me. You are in the right place if you are a teacher, an educator, and if you are neither a teacher or educator. I want you to please send this to a loved one who is, because I promise you someone is considering leaving the profession. Many of us have done that, have thought about leaving, especially in this pandemic season. So I just want you to consider, for those teachers, to reconsider three things before you pack it up and leave. And I was in the same position 3 years ago. So in this webinar, we are keeping it all the way real and all the way honest. A lot of times people have come into this thought of leaving because they are unfulfilled. And for whatever reason, and many educational circles, it's taboo to say that you're unfulfilled. But here, please be real, because we welcome the realness. And so the community that I have for Champ Restoration, which is a life coaching resource, the community is the Restored Tribe. There is a Facebook group called the Restored Tribe Book Club. If you're interested, make your way there. But let's go on. My name is Sherry White, and I'm an educator of nearly 15 years and a wellness strategist for educators. I'm also a certified holistic health coach. And so we begin this webinar today. I want you to be able to think even deeply. I know many of you have thought about leaving for years, and some of you have recently just started thinking about it. But I want you to use some of these points, any of the pointers that I'm giving today that you've never thought about or that you've never done. I want you to seriously do this so that you can walk away confidently knowing that you are supposed to be in teaching and that you are going to be fulfilled, or that you know that this is not for you any longer. You've served your time, you served your time well, and you're going to take your skills, you're going to take your knowledge, your brilliance, and your passion to another field, to entrepreneurship. So that is my prayer for you, is that you walk away a lot clearer after doing and considering the things that I'm going to share today. So I would like for you to get conversations going in the chat, and I want you to do the following. I want you to share three things in the chat. One, the country or the state that you are in. Two, what you're currently teaching. And three, the age group that you are teaching. You never know who you can meet in the chats. And so my name is Sherry, as I said earlier, and I just want to tell you it's a little bit more about myself. So I am a special education teacher, and I'm specialized in learning disabilities. Although I've had experience over the years in quite a few other classifications, some more severe and some emotional in nature, this is what I have been taught and reared in terms of instruction, is learning disabilities. And I have other licenses, but I have primarily taught and used this. I've taught in Title I settings. I've instructed not mostly, all science and some math for that time period. I've also worked in other settings, university settings. So again, I'm excited to be here, to be able to share things with you that you may have not considered, that hopefully you will arrive with some clarity and feeling some confidence and moving forward slowly and surely. And so I also want to share with you that this webinar is brought to you by Champ Restoration. And again, it is a life coaching resource, if I have said it before. And I also want to let you know that I serve in a capacity of a mental health first aid responder. It is always important for me to be able to refer out when I need to refer to a licensed clinical therapist or social worker. That is very, very important to me. So that's when I do my one-on-one work. I definitely, or even the group work, I keep an eye out for that. A fun fact about myself is that I'm a former NCAA collegiate student athlete. So let's begin. Again, top 3 things to consider. Things I want you to reconsider before you leave teaching. Now, I want to tell you a story before I give you those 3 things and a bonus. This place here you see in the background is beautiful. I know it's beautiful. It's Tanzania. It's a place that I was prepared to leave for the rural area to teach in 2018, 2019. I told myself I was going to pack it up and I was going to teach abroad after a year and that I can't fully explain to you how horrific the year was, but I'm alive. Praise God. So after a year that movies could never accurately depict, I don't know if you've had this, but if I'm a betting woman, I know that you have had years, moments, experiences that no one could ever accurately understand unless they were in your shoes or unless they are a fellow teacher in the similar setting. But I had a turbulent year prior to this school year. And I really understood what fight, flight, and freeze is very real. And so I taught in a high school setting where I had overaged, undercredited students. So that is mostly 17 to 21-year-old young people. And there was a student that very clearly and very specifically and repeatedly told me how he wanted to kill me. I thank God that I am alive and well. A lot of people, oh, threats, little kids, they have their threats. This was a 21-year-old man, okay? And one of the things that you have maybe experienced, a lot of teachers have, is that when things go haywire, there are administration who are lovely and who have the teachers' backs. And then there are some who are, you just wondering why they are in the place that they are. And so I had the latter. And so for me, the turbulent year was not just because of the threat. It wasn't because of the subsequent things that were happening that were horrible. It was because I felt unprotected. And that fight or flight thing was real. There was no freezing. I wanted to get out of there. At times I wanted to fight. I was upset. I was pissed. Again, here we keep it real. So in the comment section, feel free to share a story that has happened to you. Someone will be able to connect with your story, I'm sure. But generally, we all have taught in the pandemic. This is still a pandemic. And so there is no one else who can quite understand this situation. There is no one else who can understand pandemic teaching like you and I. And so with me, I wanted to leave, and I did interview with other places. One place, a nonprofit, didn't get the job after so many rounds of interviewing. The other, Tanzania, I did. And I was not led to move, even though I was ready to pack up and go. And so what was it that let me stay? I'm going to share some of these things that I definitely considered, and I want you to do the same. So I want you to consider the environment that you're in. If it is toxic, really, I want you to think about and plan leaving. I understand that even though we're planning on leaving, it may not be immediate leaving. You might have an opportunity that opens up for you. That is a great opportunity. It might be 2 years later, a year later, 3 years later. For me, it was about 3 years that something opened up. And I wasn't just running. I don't want you to just run out because you can go from bad to worse. And I don't want you to be complacent and say, oh, well, at least I know this nonsense. No, please don't be complacent. You are too precious. You are too one of a kind to let your talent, to let your brilliance just be in the wind, just throwing your pearls to swine. Don't do that. So yeah, we know toxic environments while you're there and you're planning your great escape. We know that they build character. It really can build character and it really can prepare you for elevation. However, please make your way out to a different environment within teaching. So I'm always going to advocate that teachers and educational staff do what's best for them. And if you have to leave the setting altogether, any setting, in every educational setting, then God bless you, do well. But for many people, they have not considered, maybe not you, but other people may have not considered leaving the current setting that they're in right now. So I just want you to think about that. We pour so much out in as teachers, then we have our family. So we need to put things in its proper perspective. And if pouring out is leaving you utterly dry and burnt out for your family and your loved ones, which come first, yeah, think about making that change. So I want to tell you a story about how I made a change. My first teaching environment was middle school. It was in the Bronx, New York, and I taught for 7 years. I taught math and science, and I taught a co-teaching setting, and then I got the self-contained. And when I got the self-contained, I was so excited because it can be, my zhuzh, me and my style. And I was really, really good at it. I really saw kids thrive in that setting. I saw kids move to less restrictive, and I saw the kids who it was best for them to stay in a self-contained and that they thrived and they grew within my self-contained. So I was excited, and administration can count on me for doing a great job in that self-contained classroom as well as the co-teaching. But the self-contained, I had most self-contained classes. And I became really weary over the years, really exhausted. And I couldn't understand how I was doing great, but I was just so weary. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't really understand. And I didn't want to understand. So there was Mr. O, who was the vice principal, and he had taught self-contained for years. And he was maybe in his 20-something year as an educator. He was a vice principal, and he just had to get up and go about him. I just was like, wow, this guy is, just full of vigor, just full of vitality. I love it. So I said, Mr. O, what have you done? What were you doing that you're not burnt to a crisp, but look like you're doing really well in terms of managing yourself? And he said, well, what I do, Miss White, is I leave my work behind, and that's it. And so for me, I don't know, maybe this is similar to you. I had a hard time doing that culturally. I was working in the Bronx, and my ancestors had settled there. One half of my ancestors had settled there in the Bronx. So when I was working with parents and guardians, I would see my family. It would be very familiar. I'll put it to you that way. It'd be very familiar. And so I've learned in time, I've improved in time to leave work behind. But what I do, though, and I've learned to do this really well, is I'll get to know the parents and the kids, of course, and I'll see which families are ready to do that extra work, are ready to get that extra information because they're going to do something with it. Now, I usually give information and resources to everyone, but there are some families who are going to jump up on it. And so I do things smarter. And so I want you to consider changing your environment, because after being exhausted, I started to look at a high school. I started looking at a high school because I said to me, I need some older kids. And it was a welcome change. It was a welcome change. And I was excited about that. So sometimes changing environments carefully and slowly will get you excited again and pumped up again. What I want you to do, this activity, is to make a T-chart. Make a T-chart. And on one side, I want you to write all the settings that you have taught in. I'm talking suburban, city, rural, even parochial, independent, private. Which one of those have you taught in? And on the opposite side, I want you to write out the areas or the settings that you have never taught. So for me, I've never taught independent, private, parochial, and rural. Okay, on the other side for me will be suburban, city. So I want you to do this for yourself. And then after you have your T-chart on the side of the settings that you've taught, and then the opposite side, the settings that you've never taught, I want you to highlight 2 areas that you want to check out. Yeah, so highlight 2 areas that you want to check out, that you want to investigate further. That is the activity for the environment assessment. Moving on to a different consideration, I want you to think about the age group. The age group, it makes such a huge difference. So number 2, the age group. And before you just jump into an age group, a different age group, get some volunteer experience, some summer experience with this age group. I'm going to just list out different age groups, different settings, but age groups. So early intervention. In my early career, I followed around a woman who was a speech language pathologist and a special educator who was servicing birth to 3 years old and their families. So there's that. There's the elementary education, right? Elementary school. There's middle school specifically. Some people love that. That's a very, very, very specific and precious age. Think about your middle school. Then there's high school, okay? And there's different type of high schools. There's trade schools, there's alternative schools, there's specialty schools, there's community colleges. And then there's university settings. And then there's the nonprofits. So I want you to think about different age groups and different where your skills can be applied. And you really would be surprised about, there's a lot of people and a lot of people and a lot of organizations who need what you have. And then there's also the entrepreneurial pursuit. And if you're interested in entrepreneurship, I want you to share that in the comment section, because there is so much that teachers can do once they know how to package themselves and market themselves correctly. Now, for this activity, what I want you to do is I want you to think about, how can you allow for more experiences? How can you, because you might say, well, how did you do all that? Well, while I worked at a middle school, I had a part-time job at a university. So that's one thing. And then there's summer work that people can, indulge in. But there's the part-time work. It gives you a toe-in so you could see if you like it or not. So I really just want you to consider how or what, not how, because where there's a will, there's a way, but what experiences you would like to have. Okay. And then start thinking of a game plan. And if you're interested in working in a completely different age group, different setting outside of K-12, also put that in the comment section if you're trying to do university, because I've done that. And it really is just marketing. And it's just really being clear that you're pointing out what you offer and how that can translate. So a change in age group works wonders. I know that. It has really kept me in the game for many, many more years. And I've learned that certain things about the university setting was not for me, but it might be for you. You might have a different situation. You may have children, and you working at a university setting, you can have tuition readmission for your child or for yourself. So listen, I want you to discover what the different age groups can bring, and just do that. The next thing I want you to consider is specifically for special education teachers. Change subjects. Change subjects. So I started off in math and in science. And then when I moved to high school, I went just strictly to science. And I also then, so science at a while, and then I started to teach English, co-teach English. It was the best thing. See, I had a great, amazing English co-teacher, and just amazing. And so, I mean, count the costs before you do that. Count the costs. Don't just leap. But I want you to think about learning new content, because not only can it challenge yourself, it does allow for a humbling process, a productive struggle, which is fun. As teachers, we love to learn. So consider challenging yourself with new content, right? Maybe getting a different certificate. And I also want you to become a master of one aspect of literacy. Maybe it is comprehension, maybe it's fluency, maybe it's decoding, because that's going to nicely pair with whatever content you're teaching for the most part. I just want, even if it doesn't pair, if you're talking about decoding and that takes a lot of time, maybe you move into that. So I just want you to have opportunities for you to move into and just fall in love with learning and fall in love with teaching all over again. Now I'm going to tell you a quick story. When I taught math in the middle school, I was so scared. I was so nervous because in middle school, I had issues with math. So I'm saying, how is this okay? Are you really? I'm going to speak up. And I spoke up to my principal and I'm not comfortable. But you know what? It ended up being one of the best experiences for not only me, but for my students, because my students was never going to catch me doing mental math and them being confused about where I was in the steps and what I was doing. They were always very clear about what steps they should take because I was explicit, because I had to be. And so why do I say that story? I share that story because the thing that we can be nervous about, the thing that we might have apprehension about, you are going to treat that thing so carefully. And as a teacher, a compassionate, loving teacher, ethical teacher, you're going to do a good job. And so the thing that I was nervous about, I did really great teaching because I was clear. And so with science, I always enjoyed science. I went to science high school, so I don't even know why I didn't study science in college. But you always want to think about a content that to challenge yourself, and a content that will benefit you or your family, or just something that you just find really interesting and cool. Okay, so that is what I'm going to say about changing subjects. And I know that is very specific to special education teachers. However, if you are a content teacher, think about an English language learner license, a special education license, to sit nicely onto your content teaching. It's only going to enhance it. This next is the bonus. And I wrote this because I really want you to seek God if you have it. This is a game changer that's changed my life. So why didn't I go to Tanzania when I got the green light from the interview? I didn't get the green light from God. I did not feel a sense of peace. Matter of fact, specifically, I knew that I was not supposed to move forward. It was very clear, and God speaking to me as He will speak to anyone. You just have to we have to put ourselves in position to listen and to make sure that we have ears to hear what God is saying to us. So when I think about seek God, it makes me think about seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And I can firmly tell you, things are being added to me to this day because I follow the leading of God. I seek Him. I don't just seek what I want to do. See, I wanted to go to Tanzania. I wanted to pack up and have this amazing experience. And I still can have, an experience in a different country. But I was doing it my way. It was in my own wisdom, which is not seeking God. That is, for me, I knew he was saying not to do that. Now, for you, I want you to see what God is saying about your steps. He created you, and so he would know things about you that you may not even yet know about yourself. And that's the beautiful thing about God. He's speaking, but are we listening? And he wants to share. And he wants us to get in alignment, an alignment to what his will is, not our will. And I bring this up because a lot of times we want to do things that may seem beautiful, that may seem great, but they're not in the will of God. They're just in our will. So I'm going to share these things with you. The activity for this one, I want you to meditate on Proverbs 3, 5, 8. To meditate, I want you to read it, believe it over and over again. Now that's very personal. The faith activates, it unlocks just the momentum. And it unlocks and it does things that I'm telling you that you are going to be so amazed. And so I'm going to read to you Proverbs 3, 5, and 8. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart, not some of your heart, not a little bit, but all of your heart, and lean not on your own understandings. That's what I was doing at one point because I was really trying to leave. I told you I was trying to leave the nonprofit for the nonprofit, and then I was trying to leave to go abroad. But it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean on your own understanding. 6, in all your ways, submit to him. Submitting is a precious and a beautiful thing when you know you're submitting to God who loves you, God who created you. So you're submitting not to someone who you don't know if they want you to stay or leave because of their own thoughts, but you're submitting to God. This is a choice that you can make. And all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So the anxiety that I started feeling when these turbulent situations were happening, as I began to seek God and read his word and meditate on his word and believe and take one step in front of the other each morning, just really asking God to cover me. He did it. He protected me. And guess what? Protection and guidance are yours for the taking as well. It's just up to you on how you're going to execute this activity. I would say feel free to make sure you get into a moment where there's no distractions. So maybe it could be late at night, or maybe it could be in nature or something where by yourself. I mean, you really, really want to make sure that you're able to not only read this, in different versions. So you've got the New King James, you've got the NLT, you've got the NIV. There's so many different versions. I like to read several different versions so that you can get a clearer aspect to the word. Amplified, AMP, that's a really good one. I want you to get in a space where you're not going to be interrupted, where there is stillness, and that you can read, meditate over and over again, pray, and be still to listen. And so I thank you for your time. As we come to a close, do you have any questions? Put them in the comment section if you have questions. And one last thing, I want to share with you some resources. So if you enjoyed this webinar, now join the book club. And you can check out the official website, The Hub, at champrestoration.com. There's my email there. Social media handle, the Restore Tribe on Instagram. And on Facebook, Champ Restoration. You'll find me at Champ Restoration. I also want to let you know, besides the book club, there is a podcast, and you can find the podcast wherever you can find podcasts. Type in the Restore Tribe, but there is a lovely website that is just for the book club. It is the restoretribe.com. Now, within Facebook, that's in the Facebook group is where we have the community challenges that will soon be starting. And you'll first hear about the upcoming coaching programs. Again, I am a life coach, specifically wellness strategist. And, I went to school at IIN, and so is the Health Coaching Institute. So I like to deal with change agents, with educators from the inside out. A lot of times, we just really need to not only change settings or whatever we need to do with that's fulfilling for our career, but we need to be able to eat well. We need to be able to think well, make sure we're renewing our minds. And if any of this sounds interesting, come check out the book club. Come check out champrestoration.com. Until next time, thank you so much and take good care. Bye-bye.